Okay, hi everyone. You're very welcome to our free information event about a Masters in Organic Farming with Dr. Lou Ralph from SRUC in Scotland. My name is Kevin Fagan from National Organic Training Skillnet. So just to start us off, I might give you a quick intro about NOTS and what we do in Ireland. So we're a not-for-profit network. We receive funding from the Department of Education to upskill adults in Ireland in organic agriculture and related areas such as biological agriculture and regenerative as well. And this can be from one-day courses all the way up to this Masters in Organic Farming that we're going to be talking about tonight. One-day short courses, farm visits, and we receive funding from the government to upskill working adults that live in Ireland. That's the only thing that you need to be to require or to qualify for this course. Signing up for a course through NOTS is a win-win. All you have to do is fill out our short membership form when you're signing up. And we offer serious funded discounts. For example, this year for this course, we're providing for the first semester for 2020 a 40% reduction towards the cost of the MSc degree. So the full price, if you weren't signing up through NOTS, you'd pay $1,700 for your first semester on this course. With the 40% reduction we're offering, that'll only be $1,020, so you're saving €680 straight off the bat by coming through NOTS. We feel this year is a really good year to start a higher qualification in organic farming. We've probably all seen the EU report is saying they want 25% of land to be farmed organically. It's an ambitious target. We're roughly at about 2% now, but it's absolutely, we feel, the time to start investing in yourself as an organic farmer. And at NOTS, we're here to help you with that. So with me tonight, we've got a couple of past pupils of the course. We've got Sean McGlone, who's also the NOTS network manager, and also Thomas Fooey, who's another distinguished graduate of our course. So during the talk this evening, if you want to put any questions, you can type them in the chat, and I'll make sure that Dr. Lou Ralph of SRUC or Sean or Thomas can answer them for you. So without further ado, I'll pass you over to Dr. Ralph, who's going to take us through a presentation on the course.
That's great. Thanks very much, Kevin. It's really very strange for me to be doing this as a virtual event, because for the last 3 or 4 years I've come over to Ireland to do it in person. So it's really disappointing that I can't actually meet the people I'm speaking to, but I think we're all getting a bit more used to this online existence than we would maybe have liked. So I'm here, as Kevin said, to talk about our distance learning postgrad diploma and MSc in organic farming. We've been running the course in this format since 2002, but the course has actually existed since the year 2000. So I'm quite proud to be celebrating, or the SRUC is celebrating 20 years of our master's degree in organic farming. Just to give you a little history of the organisation, we've gone through a number of different incarnations. Previous to what we are now, we were the Scottish Agricultural College. We're now Scotland's Rural College. What hasn't changed is that we have 3 distinct divisions. So we have the education division, research and consulting. And so we're in a lucky position that we can have experts from across these divisions teaching into the organic farming programme. So we've had quite a long-standing relationship with NOTS. We've had many Irish students through the course in the 20 years since we've started. And this relationship has really been strengthened by the fact that there are and have been quite a few of our graduates who work for NOTS, Sean amongst them. We also have, or have had for the last 5 years, a partnership with the Organic Research Centre. Some of you might be aware of some of the sort of traditionally big names in the organic sector, like Nick Lampkin, Suzanne Pardell and Mark Measures, who all either have been or are involved with the Organic Research Centre. And we currently have a partnership agreement with them, which we're hoping to be able to take forward into the future as well. So Kevin's already introduced me as Dr. Lou Ralph. I prefer to keep it more informal. Please call me Lou. It makes me feel very old if everyone starts calling me Dr. Ralph. I'm based at SRUC in Aberdeen, our Craibston campus, and I believe that this session is going to be recorded and made available, so my phone number and my email address are also there if anybody wants to contact me direct about the programme. So I've talked about a couple of the partnerships that we have. Perhaps our most important one is that with the University of Glasgow, because the University of Glasgow is the awarding body for our degrees. So at the moment, if you come to do our Masters, the degree you get will be awarded by the University of Glasgow. That means that we're also bound by their regulations and their quality processes, and the quality of our provision is checked annually by the University of Glasgow. The pictures here show a graduation ceremony, both in the Bute Hall in Glasgow and in the quad outside the Bute Hall. So any of our former graduates who are here will hopefully testify that it's a really fantastic venue for graduation. Unfortunately, as you'll be aware, COVID-19 has affected many things over the last few months and is still doing so. And very sadly for this year's graduates, there has been no graduation ceremony. So we're hoping that we will be able to catch them up with that next year. But all things being equal, our students will graduate with a degree from the University of Glasgow and do that at Glasgow University. If you're interested in applying for the course, it's an online application form direct to SRUC via the course pages on the website. The website is given there. If you scroll right down to the bottom of the organic farming page, there is a tab for Apply Now, and you can just click on that. Applications are open until the middle of August, but I would recommend anybody who is interested in applying should please get their application in sooner rather than later, because it pushes everything a bit close to the start if we're trying to do everything right at the last minute. The entry requirement for the course is nominally a degree in a related subject, but we actually do state that we don't have any absolute academic prerequisites laid down. So we don't automatically discount people if they don't already have a degree. And what we prefer to do is assess all our applications individually based on the academic qualifications and the experience of the applicant. And we're particularly keen to hear from perhaps mature candidates who've got a vast amount of extensive work experience in the organic sector. So, for example, our oldest graduate was 70 when he graduated, and he didn't really have any formal qualifications from his past, but he had a wealth of knowledge of the organic sector, and he actually came to the course and did really, really well. So we do like to look at applications each on their own merit. And what I would say to you is, if you're thinking about applying, is just please, take full advantage of the part of the application form for your personal statement, so that we can see exactly what it is that you've been doing in terms of your practical experience as well as your qualifications. What I would like to reiterate, though, is that it is a postgraduate qualification, so it's not going to be a walk in the park. And if Tom and Sean get a chance to say something later on, I would expect that they'll reiterate that. It's not going to be easy, and studying by distance learning isn't going to be easy. We are as flexible and as understanding as we can possibly be, because we completely understand that people are taking on this course while also potentially working full-time, having a family, possibly both, and it is a lot of hard work. So just please do remember that we are talking about a postgrad qualification, and obviously you do have to work in order to achieve that. The postgrad diploma, which is years 1 and 2 of the course, is basically a distance learning approach, but we do have study weekends, which are usually held in Aberdeen 3 times a year. And years 1 and 2, the fee rate is £2,940 for the year for each of those 2 years. But as Kevin said, obviously for the Irish students, there has to be a euro conversion, and then NOTS this year are astonishingly giving a 40% subsidy, which is absolutely fantastic. And all the other postgrad students will be very jealous of that opportunity. The 3rd year is the master's year, which is £2,000 for the year. And the study sessions for the masters are weekday study sessions, not weekends. And there would be normally 2 study sessions, and then also students normally would attend in June when the external examiner is present, and have interviews with the external examiner from the University of Glasgow. Also really need to reiterate that because the study weekends do happen in Scotland, there are going to be additional costs in terms of your travel and accommodation to get to Aberdeen, and also stay either at or near the campus while you're there. We're very lucky in that we are literally within walking distance of Aberdeen Airport, and there's an absolute plethora of hotels in the vicinity of the airport. There's probably 5 or 6 different hotels that you can choose from within walking distance of the campus. So it's pretty easy to find accommodation, but it is obviously an additional cost that you would need to factor in. We also recommend that you allow 12 to 15 hours a week of self-directed study. So if you're thinking of applying, then you need to think about how you fit that in with your other commitments. And I do know that it really requires quite a lot of self-discipline and self-motivation to be able to fit this in on top of the other things that you might be having to do. And I'm also quite sure that some students probably spend a lot more than that, and some probably spend less than that. But that's our sort of standard recommendation as to how much time you might be expected to spend while you were studying. It's a 3-year part-time online distance learning program if you do it sort of consecutively from start to finish. It is possible to take time out in between the different years of the program, up to a maximum time spent on the program of 4 years for a postgrad certificate or diploma, and 6 years for a master's degree. So you don't actually have to start and do the 3 years all in one go. For the coming academic year, the study weekends for years 1 and 2 will kick off with an induction weekend in September from the 4th to the 6th of September. Now, the reason I've got that highlighted in yellow is because, unfortunately, for the first time in the history of our distance learning program, we have to have our study weekend as a virtual event, because we're obviously at the moment not allowed to have any students on campus, and we have no guarantee that that's going to change before September. So we've had to make the decision that we can't have any of our students coming in for that induction weekend. So this is a new departure for us, because that's usually the one thing that we don't do online. And we're very much hoping that for the subsequent study weekends, which will be in January and March 2021, that things will be back to normal. But obviously that's something which is out of SRUC's hands, and we just have to take advice on what the best thing is to do. And the first year students also would normally have a study tour in June at the end of first year. So anybody applying now, that will be June 2021. Unfortunately, this year's study tour was also a casualty of COVID-19. So things are just obviously not quite as we would like them to be at the moment. So anybody who does apply, obviously, will keep you posted as to exactly what the study weekend will entail in September. We want to try and do all the things that we usually do, but obviously just do them online. But we also want to ensure that you don't literally have to sit and spend 3 days sitting at a computer, because since a lot of our lives have involved that for the last 3 months, I've got to the stage where I wouldn't wish it on anybody. As I said, the study weekends are in Aberdeen, and as I've also said, that's going to incur additional costs for you, or obviously under normal circumstances they're in Aberdeen. Unfortunately, SRUC can't be responsible for airline timetables and routes and things like that. Our study weekends are set to fit in with the academic calendar, and we do our best to try and accommodate students, but obviously students are coming from potentially all over the world as well as all over the UK. So to a certain extent, we just have to set our study weekends, and people have to fit in travel around that. Unfortunately, we're also not responsible for the timetable of the Rugby Six Nations, and we did have one memorable study weekend where we lost an entire cohort of students, and then discovered them in the TV room watching because Ireland was playing in one of the rugby internationals, and they were all completely horrified that we'd managed to book a study weekend for the same time as the Six Nations Games. So obviously goes to show that I'm not a rugby fan, but yeah, sometimes these things don't please everybody. To be a bit more serious about the awards that we offer, year one of the programme is equivalent to a postgrad certificate. It's not something that we particularly advertise as an exit award, but once you've completed the first 4 modules, you would be eligible for a postgrad certificate. Year 2 is the postgrad diploma, and year 3 is the Master of Science. So it's broken down into 4 taught modules for each of the first 2 years, giving 8 modules altogether for your postgrad diploma. And then year 3 is an independent research project and dissertation. So that's really when you're let loose to work on something that's of particular interest to you. We have a mix of coursework and exams in the first year. So first year modules have 60% coursework and 40% exam for all 4 of those modules. The second year modules are all assessed by 100% coursework. So if you get through year 1, then you don't have any more exams, but you do probably have more writing to do. Progression to the MSc is dependent on the overall grade which is achieved for the postgrad diploma over the first 2 years. We mark all our assessments on using the University of Glasgow Common Assessment Scale, since they validate our degrees, and the progression standard is a C3 average across the modules for the first 2 years. And the assessment of the masters is 100% by dissertation. The course objectives are basically, first of all, an ability to critically appraise organic farming, both as an agricultural system in its own right and in the wider context. The programmes are revalidated every 6 years by the University of Glasgow, and the organic farming programme was last revalidated in 2018. And for a few years before that, the external examiners had been saying that they felt it was important that students got more of an understanding of how organic farming fitted into the bigger picture and the global context of other things that are going on in the world. So the programme was changed slightly to make sure that that bigger picture and wider context was brought into it. It should go without saying that we also have an objective that students will gain a good understanding of the organic sector, but also a sound knowledge of the science that underpins that. Any of you out there listening who are not scientists, don't panic about that. I do sometimes get people saying that they're really worried about the science element of the course, but well, it's not too bad. Everybody, I think everybody's favourite module is the soils and nutrient cycling module, and that's the one which has the most science in it, but it's not scary science. Fourth objective is the clear understanding of marketing, financial and audit requirements. So one of the modules is marketing and financial management. We also have work placement experience, and particularly for those people going on to masters, research skills will also be one of the objectives that you achieve. Our main teaching blocks are September to January, and then from January to June, which basically means that July and August are off. That's the holiday period. However, that could well be a good opportunity to work on your work placement project between years 1 and 2 while you've got a bit of free time. Just to break it down for you a bit more, we break each year, as I said, into 2 teaching blocks. So the first 2 modules that you would study in year 1, block 1, are organic farming principles and practice, which really gives you an overview of the sector, how it's developed, the organic certification bodies and standards, and that kind of thing. And the second module is organic crop and grassland production. You then move on in block 2 to study soils and nutrient cycling and organic livestock production. So these 4 modules are the ones which are assessed 60% by coursework and 40% by examination. In year 2, you have the organic farming work placement module, although that's actually introduced to you right at the beginning of first year, and you have until January of your second year to complete that. It's nominally a 6-week period, but that doesn't have to be a consecutive 6 weeks. You can take that in weekends or days or weeks over the course of your studies for completion by January of second year. At the beginning of second year, you'll also complete the marketing and financial management module, and then you'll move on to the 2 final modules, which are the organic farming case study, which is basically a conversion plan, which is assessed 100% by the creation of an organic conversion plan, and also issues in organic farming, which is the module which really brings in the wider context, and students can choose a topic for a critical review, which is quite a big piece of work, but it's quite a good experience as a lead into the master's project because it involves a lot of literature reading and critical review of literature in a subject which is related to organic farming within the wider context. Our basic learning strategy is the provision of learning material online through our virtual learning environment, which is called Moodle. I've done a wee screenshot there of what a page of Moodle might look like, although having said that, it's currently undergoing review over the summer, so it might look a bit different next academic year. It contains downloadable course material. A lot of the material is stuff that you can download onto your own computers, obviously with the proviso that you don't sell it on to anybody else. It also has discussion forums, which students can feed questions to members of staff, or members of staff can feed questions back to students. It might have web links. It has the course information site. It's where all the learning material for the course is available. In terms of learning, you will have to do a lot of reading. When you're working at master's level, you're expected to do a lot of literature searching. You have complete access to our library systems online. You do have access to physical books, which you can take out from the library, and the library will send books out to you if you want them. But you need to sort of hone your skills for searching literature online, because that'll give you access to everything that we have through the college library. You'll also be honing your academic writing skills. And we do spend quite a lot of time when we're giving feedback to students for their coursework, especially in the initial parts of first year, on helping them develop academic writing skills, because there are particular conventions in scientific writing and academic writing, and it's not necessarily something that people are very familiar with. So we try and give a lot of help and feedback with that. You'll also be expected to develop your skills in critical analysis, and that's something that our external examiners over the years tend to praise and say that it's really evident when looking at student work from the beginning through to the end of their career with us, that critical analysis is the skill which they really develop. You will be expected to give some presentations, you'll be expected to write reports, various forms of assessment, whether that's coursework or exams, and different forms of coursework. And we also run online tutorials, which are live sessions that you can link into. We do them in the evenings in the hope that people will be able to attend them live after work. But they're also recorded and put onto the VLE so that people can catch up with them afterwards. And that's your opportunity to have some sort of live dialogue with the tutors who are teaching you. The study weekends have always played a really, really important part in the programme. And they tend to be the thing that students say they kind of enjoy and appreciate most of all. And typically, they're a very good way of everybody getting together, and an awful lot of knowledge is exchanged and a lot of friendships are forged. They're used for feedback on modules. They're used for introduction to new modules and assessments. They are typically used for farm and industry visits. We have invited speakers. Sometimes we have sector updates, and sometimes we have exams. This is what we're going to try and reproduce in a virtual format for September, but I do sincerely hope that any students joining us will also get the opportunity to experience some of the live events because they are usually quite good fun as well as being potentially quite intensive. Study weekends always involve social events as well as work. Again, as I said, I really hope that you're going to get some opportunity to discover this firsthand, because telling stories in the bar is one of the things that students enjoy most. Although this picture makes it look as if all people do is eat and drink at study weekends, which is not, strictly speaking, true. Although we did have one cohort of students who discovered the local chip shop down the road from the college. Anybody who's familiar with the northeast of Scotland would not be surprised to hear that it's a fairly typical culinary thing to batter and deep fry anything possible, from Mars bars to pizzas. And one cohort of students discovered this local chip shop and made it a mission that every time they came to Aberdeen, they would go to the chip shop and try something different. And they were quite determined that by the time they finished their masters, they would have tried everything on the menu. So I suspect we're quite lucky that they didn't all die of heart attacks. But it's all part of trying to get the student group to know each other when they don't actually spend very much time together. We also have an annual study tour. I've just spotted Mr. Fui is on that photo at the bottom there. Fame Tom. So the study tour happens in June at the end of first year. We have a rotation, so we have 3 different areas of Scotland that we visit, and we have done a study tour down to the south of England, and we hope to do that again. And these are just a really good opportunity at the end of first year to bring together students learning in a sort of practical context, visiting different farms, different businesses, to see what people are doing, just to learn new things and to look at things in a different context from maybe where you're familiar with doing it. So it's not necessarily farms, it can be dairies, cheese making, brewing, you name it, whatever's organic or interesting, we try and cover it. So I've made it look as if the sun always shines on these study tours. That's absolutely definitely not true. We've had some pretty wet ones, but these photos are from the study tour that we did based at the Organic Research Centre when it was at Newbury. And we saw some really fascinating farms down there and did get some blue skies as well. It was quite a big group that year. I think we had 20 odd students with us on the study tour. I can see Tom peering at them to see who he can identify. But it's just another of the ways that we sort of try and reinforce learning and give people the context in which organic farming might be happening in places that they're not familiar with. I feel that the last word should probably go to a student. I fear that the last word might actually be from Tom, who's there to tell us what it's really like being a student, as opposed to what I'm presenting to you. But this was a quote from one of our students who graduated a few years ago, who very sweetly said that he felt that it was basically impossible to describe what a difference studying at SRUC had made to him, how it completely transformed his life and completely exceeded his highest expectations. And in fact, we had some really lovely feedback from the master's students this year when they were having interviews with the external examiner, who said that the course had, in all aspects, completely exceeded what they'd expected, which is always really, really nice to hear. And I have to say that graduation is really one of the best days of the year for teaching staff. I said that once to a group of students and they sort of rolled their eyes at me and said, "Oh, is that because you're just so pleased to get rid of us?" Well, that's absolutely not true. What it actually is that it's just so fantastic to see students who've worked so hard and sometimes, in the face of adversity and all sorts of things that are going on in their lives, actually achieve success with their qualification at whichever level that is. So I just typed into a word cloud generator all sorts of phrases and words that students had given in feedback, just to try and sort of give a bit of an overview of what the student experience is like. That's really just about all I've got to say. I've probably whizzed through it. If anybody's typed in any questions, Kevin will pass them on, or I don't know whether maybe Tom's going to chat with you first.
Yeah, I have 3 questions that have come through here, so I might go for maybe one for yourself, one for Sean, maybe one for Tom. For yourself, I might ask you, Lou, for non-degree holders, people who maybe don't have any academic background, what would be the key requirements you'd be looking for?
If they've got absolutely no academic background at all, then they would really need to have quite extensive experience in the organic sector, you know, and quite likely shown that they were sort of involved in, for example, you know, discussion groups or additional things as opposed to just the practical work. As I said, we have had very successful students who haven't come from an academic background, but we have to be sure that it's going to be a happy experience for the students as well as for us. And sometimes, if we're not 100% sure that the match is going to be perfect, what we have done in the past is we have offered students a place on the postgrad certificate in the first instance, and that means that they can undertake the first year of the course and see how it goes for them. And if they achieve a good enough standard in year 1, then they could progress further through the program. It is also possible, I should have said, it is also possible just to pick a single module and do it as like a sort of CPD thing. So if anybody was interested in doing that, that's also an option.
Okay, thanks, Lou. I might ask Sean, I might ask you next, the logistics of attending the course. Obviously, anybody who's come through us here will be coming from Ireland across to Scotland. How did you find the logistics of the course? Getting to Scotland, that kind of thing.
Sorry, Kevin, is that me or is it?
That's you for yourself, Sean, yeah.
Oh, sorry, apologies everybody, my internet is breaking down here. Before I start that, I just wanted to say as well, and I think Lou will probably agree with me on this one, is like I done the course back 2007, 2009, and it started us in NOTS on a very different trajectory. I think for the first time, we started to look at organic farming in a more professional, and what the course done, it allowed people, there's 7 or 8 guys that came through the course who are now agri-consultants. So for the first time, that allowed people to advise other farmers on organic farming as an option, which was completely ignored or unknown. Even some of the state advisory services were afraid to talk about organic farming because they didn't know enough about it. So we that made a huge difference to us. And then the question on if you don't have an existing degree or a relevant degree, what are the important things? One of I think that not everybody, most people have it nowadays, but is a bit, particularly in a distance learning course. That was one of the things that I found that some people that were poor in this area struggled with in the past. So that would be quite a good thing to have. Now, in terms of the logistics, I, like many other people, was working and didn't want to go back to full-time education because I'd have to give up my money, and that wasn't going to be a runner, and I wasn't going to be late anyway. So I found actually quite the whole thing refreshingly easy. When we were doing, there was a straight Ryanair flight into Aberdeen, and like Lou said, the airport within walking distance. But maybe some things we do forget is that, and it was one of the David Uni, who was one of the past lecturers, said at a thing that the students often learn more from each other as much as learning from the lecturers. And that was a huge important thing. There was a really good, and that often happened in the bar, that exchange of discussion or in the coffees, at the coffee breaks. And it was more than just going for the lectures, it was that interaction with other people that probably made the difference for me. And I was, it was quite a few years since I had gone back to 3rd level. And for the first time around, the first registration weekend, like, what did I learn? And And all of a sudden I was back for the next one and I realized, oh Christ, yeah, we covered all that. That was all. Do you know what I mean? All of a sudden you realize that you're almost passively taking in this information plus all the study stuff. So it would have had a huge, huge positive impact on me. Year one was brilliant. It was just, I suppose there was an enthusiasm and stuff there. And year two was a little bit harder. And I made a huge mistake that I didn't consider the value of the work placement in year two near enough. You know, it's you can fall into the thing of looking at the work placement as being an easy option, but if your plan is correct and you're planning to go to do your thesis, I think that work placement has a huge opportunity, especially for somebody that hasn't direct access to maybe an organic farm or whatever it was, to plan your thesis around your work placement as well. And you know what I mean, you're preempting some stuff, but it would really have worked. And I was very, very sorry that when I done mine, I done one on rare breed cattle, but my thesis was completely different. If I was doing it again, I'd try and link those two together for the future. You know, do your work placement, but think about it as in the context of what your research thesis would be. And that would be one of my regrets, that I didn't do it in that format. But I think where the college is situated, the fact that you're kind of a group over there and there's international students there and you're getting to meet, and the quality of the lectures is so good, I have to say that it's the most important course we do in all our training since 2007. I would say that the Masters is the most important course.
Excellent, thanks, Sean. Mr. Thomas Fooey there, I just have a third and kind of general question in for you. Is it pros and cons for the Organic Masters?
Kevin, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
There is all pros, there's no cons.
Excellent.
I might elaborate smarter than that, okay? Lou gave her introduction there, and she was very stern about the academic side of it and things like that. I actually broke Lou's heart with referencing, because every time I sent him an assignment, I won't call him emojis, but there was excuses on the side about getting my referencing right. But I nearly got there. But you make fantastic friends, okay? And by the way, Lou, our WhatsApp group is still extremely active. And the SRUC one from our buddies that went there. And it's fantastic because we bounce things off of each other still. The quality of the lecturers would be known worldwide in their field of organic expertise. On the travel side of it, we started to get together because I was from the south of Ireland. We used to book ahead and we'd fly into Edinburgh and we'd hire a car, maybe 3 or 4 of us, and we can get it very cheap at that time of the year. And a couple of hours up the road and down, and it was way cheaper. And we tended to stay in the same hotels. So yes, the après ski was as good as the lecturers. It did open my mind. I had so many questions, and I had such exuberance, and I have more exuberance now about the organic sector than anything else. And SRUC really put everything together for me. They have the library, the lecturers. One of the most memorable times was we went on a study trip and the exams down to the south of England and to the Organic Research Centre, and we visited Helen Browning's farm, which you might see a picture of me standing inside the field instead. And that was probably an eye-opener for me. And we went to Sheep Trove and we went to Eat Colhurst, which is so memorable for me. And you also touched on probably the most special moment in the 3 years was the day of the conferring for everybody that went there. And it will always be special for me. But having said that, that wasn't the final thing, because I do keep in touch with some of the lecturers over there, and thanks Lou for giving me the feed to the Robin's search into the ICRA, and I was on to him by the emails and that, and I have some stuff to give him as well. So it's going to be an ongoing progression, and if anybody decides to do this, you're in safe hands with Dr. Lou.
Thanks,
Okay,
Tom.
Kevin.
Thanks very much, Tom. I appreciate that. Lou, do you have any? Oh, hang on. I just have another question here coming in the chat from Stephen. Is there a shorter period to complete the course, or do you have to do the 3-year term that's coming from an academic background with a degree?
There isn't really a shorter way of doing it. If you try to do it all at the same time, it would be full time. So I think if you're trying to do it while you're working, it doesn't really matter if you've already got a degree. I mean, quite a few of some of our students actually already have master's degrees. They just have done them in something different, and it might not be the level. It might just be the volume that you would struggle to fit in if you were trying to accelerate it. So we don't offer it as anything other than the 3-year program.
Okay, I don't see any other questions. So would you like to give us a short wrap up there, Lou?
Well, first of all, I'd like to say thank you all for joining in. As I said, I'm really sad not to be able to be there to meet you in person and have a chat with you sort of after the event like I would normally do over in Ireland. But please, Kevin intends to put the recording up onto the NOTS website and the YouTube channel, I think. It's got my contact details on it. So if there's anything that you feel you haven't got from this evening, or if there's anything that you think afterwards you'd like to ask, or if you just want to chat about it and it's something that, I don't know, you don't want to put into the chat here or whatever, then please just get in touch with me direct. That's absolutely fine. And otherwise, I don't know, I might see some of you at some point in the future. But thanks very much to NOTS for hosting the event, and particularly for such fantastic support of students from Ireland who want to do the programme. And yeah, really nice to virtually meet you all. And thanks very much for to Tom for coming on to add his support to the programme. And he wasn't paid to do it, honest.
Right. Thanks very much, Tom. Thanks, Sean, and thanks, Dr. Lou Ralph. And as she says, if anyone has any questions for herself, her contact details will be there. If you want to contact us at NOTS, the email is info@nots.ie. And as I say, this will be going up on our YouTube channel. So if you know anyone who's interested in the course, we'll be emailing the link to that YouTube link to this chat tomorrow, so you can send that on to any friends or family who are interested. So thanks very much, and we hope to talk to you all soon.
Thank you all. Bye.